Hello, yellers! Welcome back to Why Am I Yelling? Musings from a middle-aged menopausal mom, the podcast where we talk about life, love, and learning to yell about all the things that actually matter. I'm your host, Krista Rizzo, professional certified coach, author of an actual relationship book, and the girl who believes that there's nothing a good laugh and a Swiftie dance party can't fix most of the time. So speaking of Swifties and relationships, let's talk about the thing that broke the internet last week. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and the conversation or interview. Conversation with Jason, who is like, the third wheel in this whole night. So Taylor sat down with Travis on his podcast, and the world collectively lost its mind. I think the internet broke at 1.3 million viewers on YouTube. I actually had to go listen to the last 20 minutes on a streaming service to listen to it, and then I went back to watch it after it was put back up a few hours later. Records were broken. All the things were happening. And if you know me, you know that I love a pop culture moment. Pop culture is a guilty pleasure of mine. Reality TV is a guilty pleasure of mine. I love that stuff. But what got my attention wasn't the album announcement or the glittery Easter eggs that probably there are a gazillion of that I will never fully understand. It was them as a couple. The way they looked at each other, the way that they laughed together, the way that they supported each other without seemingly any ego. And then I thought, you know what? This is it. This is what we have to talk about, because this is midlife love in action. And so we're going to dive into that today. What can we learn from Taylor and Travis about relationships in midlife? Whether you're dating, divorced, remarried, or just sitting here thinking about your own relationship, God, do I even have the energy for this anymore? And you know what? You do. And really, a lot of the times it's worth it. I know that, when you think of midlife, you don't think of 30s. The Google says that midlife is between 40 and 60, which also is horrifying to somebody who is in their mid-50s or early 50s. Or on the early side still. But for the purpose of this episode, we're going to expand midlife to, mid to late 30s, because I think, and I know that having a relationship in your 20s and even your early 30s is very different from having your relationships later in life, right? When you're starting a relationship in your mid to late 30s, chances are that you know yourself better, and you know what you want better than what you did when you were younger. And so we're going to get into that right now. So are you kidding me? This whole internet thing, right? I am a fan of football in real life. I am a fan of Taylor Swift in real life. I grew up watching the New York Giants. My dad had season tickets. We would go to games when I was a kid. After we moved to Florida, obviously didn't do that. But after I came back to New York City, lots of friends that had tickets, went to Giants games. So I bleed blue for the New York Giants. Kind of got lost outside of football for a long time after I had kids. Watched it, didn't watch it, but it wasn't like an every Sunday kind of thing. And then Travis and Jason came along with their podcast. And I think their podcast is hilarious and very well done. And then, of course, Travis goes on his podcast, this, one day Hall of Fame tight end, the best in the business, gets on his podcast and calls Taylor Swift out, right? He tried to send her a friendship bracelet while he was at her concert in Kansas City 2 years ago in July, and she didn't do a meet and greet, and it had his phone number on it, and he said it. He put it out there for all the world to know about in a rom-com scripted kind of way. Bold move. High school, oh so high school, as Taylor says, to say, hey, I came here with a friendship bracelet for you You didn't want to meet me, which after we learned the story was super hilarious because it turns out that he didn't go through any channels to try to meet her. He just thought, I'm going to show up and say, here I am. And that's obviously not how it works with the biggest pop star or star in the world, right? She's got handlers and security and all the things. And even though you know the lady at the elevator at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, you're still not getting there. But somehow his shout out to her on their podcast got to her through all the channels that we learned about in that interview, and it worked, right? So the lesson that we take away from that is when you are of a certain age, and I'm going to say, in your mid-30s till later than that, we don't have time for half measures, right? If you like someone or you want something, you have to say it. If you're curious, make the move. Cheesy, look, in this case, can be charming. And bold is sexy. You want to be swept off your feet, whether you're a man or a woman, right? You want to be called out and say, I'm interested in you. I want to know more. This. We don't have time for any of the games that we played in our 20s. Right? In our 20s, we sat around people waiting for people to text us back. When my 20s, I didn't even have text messaging. My husband and I met when we were 24 and 25. And we were living in different states at the time. And so we had astronomical telephone bills when you used to pay 25 cents a minute for long distance. And we wrote each other letters, right? We didn't wait to be texted back or any of that stuff. We didn't worry about, looking too eager, right? That was the way that we were taught in our 20s. Like, you don't want to look like too eager or desperate. These days, if you're in your midlife and you are even in a solid relationship, right? If you want something out of it, say it. I got things to do. I have laundry to fold. There are jobs in there. There's kids projects due. There's doctor's appointments and walking the dog and doing all the things that get in the way of us having the time that we used to have, the free time that we used to have before we had the life that we have now. And whether you are dating or married or, perusing whatever it is that you're perusing, it's different when you're older, right? Midlife dating is about clarity. Being bold actually saves time, right? It saves heartbreak because you're cutting through the guessing games. You're putting yourself out there and you're saying, hey, I'm going to take this leap of faith and I'm going to hope that you're going to respond to me in a way that I actually want. But it takes the guessing game out of the whole thing. It's like you put yourself out there and here's the answer, right? So take a second to think about this question. We're going to go through a few different questions today. When was the last time you made a bold gesture for someone you cared about? Now, it could be your life partner, it could be somebody you're dating, it could be a best friend, it could be something. Was it last week? Was it last year? Was it years ago? Why? And what's stopping you from doing something now? How about that? Another thing about Taylor and Travis's interaction and their interview was the confidence in their conversation, right? It was confidence without performance, kind of, right? One of my favorite teasers leading up to the podcast was when, Travis and Taylor are sitting together next to each other and she says, one thing that football dads can't wait to see is more of me, or whatever she said along those lines, to poke fun at the whole Brads, Chads, and Dads thing from a few years ago. Travis just laughed along with it because he thinks it's hilarious. He's not embarrassed by it. He doesn't get defensive of the male audience that watches New Heights or watches the NFL. He's confident in his relationship and he's confident in his girlfriend and the way she articulates things and how she gets things across. And that is another pro of midlife love. Confidence isn't just about being the loudest in the room or showing off the way that we used to think it was when we were younger, right? The class clown or the person with the big self-esteem. That's confidence. That's what we always all thought confidence was when we were younger. It's about being grounded enough to know who you are and to be supportive of the people around you who are exuding that confidence. Remember that book, The Rules, when we were in our 20s? Don't text back too soon. Wait 3 days after the date to call the guy or the girl or the whatever. Play hard to get. I was never a dater, so that's not something I ever had to deal with. But I imagine it was exhausting. And I had tons of friends who dated like serially. Like they were dating all the time. And it was exhausting because they had this book out and it would be like, oh, here's the rules and I'm not supposed to do this and I can't do that and this is what this says. And in order for me to have a successful relationship. No. Midlife confidence says, I like you. I want to talk to you. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm going to put myself out there because I've got other things to do with my energy if this is not going to be a thing. That's what confidence looks like. Right? Have you ever found yourself on a date laughing too hard at a bad joke or a comment that your date said so you don't make them feel insecure? Right? That's performative, right? You're concerned about making them feel comfortable. And these days, as we have gotten older and wiser and more confident in our own skin, if somebody tells a bad joke, you should be able to laugh at that bad joke like, wow, that was a really bad joke, ha, ha, ha. And not take it too seriously. And test the person that you're with to see if they can actually handle your reaction to a bad joke or a difficult or uncomfortable kind of moment that should have been that where they were waiting for a different reaction, right? Not taking yourself too seriously is a sign of confidence in a relationship. And so here's my next question for you. If you're single and you're out there dating, are you showing up as the real you? Or are you showing up as the version of you that you think that your date or your partner wants? Because here is the truth. If you start a relationship with a mask on, you're going to be exhausted keeping it there. We hear the buzzword authenticity all the time when people talk about their relationships and being authentic and maybe their businesses and having their clients and all that stuff. Make sure that you know that you can show up in your relationship as you, not a person that you think your partner wants you to be. That's how you get to 28 years, 40 years, 50 years of partnership and marriage and commitment. It's being able to be you comfortably and having your other person accept that. Which leads me into the support part and the acceptance part. Pride without competition, right? We should be able to celebrate our partners and even our own success, right? So during that interview with Taylor and Travis, you could see how genuinely proud they were of each other. There was no weird energy. It was no whose career is bigger. We all know the answer to that. It was just pure joy and support. And that's what's really important in midlife relationships, because a lot of us have been in partnerships or relationships where there was scorekeeping. Who emptied the dishwasher more often? Who worked harder this week? Who makes more money? Who took the dog for a walk? Who carpooled the kids? Who folded the laundry? Like all the things. And a lot of times, especially the women, because most of the time we carry bigger burdens when it comes to things like that. And that's not me keeping score. That's just the truth, right? It's exhausting, but also we keep it inside. We're keeping score in our heads. We're not keeping score out loud. So our partner doesn't even know that, this is something that's bugging us, or it's something that we feel like we might need to ask help on. So by the time you get to kind of your midlife area, range, you hopefully know that love is not a competition, right? It's a partnership. And every win for each of you in that relationship is a win for your team, for your family, for your connected relationship together. So let's practice this. Think of a partner, a friend, or a family member. What is one win that they had recently? And did you celebrate it? Or did you gloss over it because you were too busy, or you may have been a little bit jealous? We're going to get into those kinds of things in different episodes down the line. But, jealousy is definitely a thing, and competition is definitely a thing in relationships. So are you still doing that in your midlife? And it doesn't have to be with your life partner. It could be with your girlfriends or your guy friends or whatever, right? But think about that. When was the last time, or what was a win that someone that you love had recently, and did you celebrate that? My husband recently, his team won for the Rachel Maddow Show the Edward R. Murrow Award for their podcast Ultra, and I am always wildly proud of the work that they do every single day, and the awards that they win for the work that they do. And I'm a cheerleader for everybody in my family. I'm constantly hyping people up and celebrating even the smallest things. So letting them know that, super proud of the achievements that you have, say it out loud. That's a big deal. And that's a big deal. But we do little deals here too. And little deals, I think, are more important than the big deals. So celebrate it, right? Send the text, make the toast. Don't save the good china, right? Nothing builds safety and intimacy in any relationship like knowing someone is in your corner without keeping score. Don't be afraid to show your vulnerability. And so while we're talking about vulnerability, say that 10 times fast, right? Here's where I really started yelling at my screen when I was watching Travis and Taylor on their podcast. Travis is out here in front of millions of people, literally breaking the internet, looking totally smitten. Not even trying to play it cool. He's not embarrassed by his emotions. He never has been, which is, I think, part of the appeal of the Kelce brothers. He's just being open. And Taylor, she's just sharing her life about sewing and baking and the deeply personal journey of buying back her master's and crying on air about it because it's such a huge deal for her. And to listen to her tell the story, you understand what that means for her legacy. I mean, her legacy is cemented in all the things anyway, but what it really means for her and her family down the line, and hopefully her children and their children. But that's vulnerability, not being afraid to share that with your partner in front of millions of people. Midlife vulnerability is a superpower. We have been through enough up until this stage of our lives. We have been through heartbreak and loss and curveballs, right? To understand that that playing it safe emotionally doesn't protect us, right? It keeps us isolated. You feel isolated when you don't feel like you can put it all out there. And you don't have to put it all out there for everybody, millions of people, but you should be able to feel comfortable putting it out there with the people that are closest to you. Because those are the people that you need the comfort and the love and the support from. And so adding another layer to them, right? Public and versus private bonds, because we're watching them. If you're somebody like me and you have a guilty pleasure for pop culture and you're a Swiftie and you listen to the New Heights podcast and you know a lot of the things that are going on with them, or you keep up with that stuff, like myself. These two are navigating fame and football and music tours and paparazzi in their regular days. And yet they're still finding time for inside jokes about otters and sourdough bread. And I think that's the biggest lesson for the people that are watching this with them is that protect your privacy. Protect your peace. I like to say that all the time too. You can have your private rituals. For them, whatever it is. It's their sourdough. It's her baking the Pop-Tarts. It's, they work out together sometimes. It's their watching the otter videos on the TikToks or the YouTubes or the whatevers. It doesn't have to be glamorous. Clearly, it's not for them. Maybe it's watching reality TV together on Thursday nights with your partner. Maybe it's coffee on the porch before the kids wake up. It's those little moments that make a difference. And so, what is your private ritual that you do with someone that you love? And if you don't have one, what is one that you could start? And as we're talking about coffee on the porch, like my husband every day, just about, makes his coffee and takes it out to our front porch. We have two red rocking chairs on our front porch. And I'm not a coffee drinker, so I could very easily skip that. But I understand that that's a potential chance for us to just sit, even if it's for a few minutes. Usually I walk the dog while he's having his coffee, and when we come back, I will grab my water and sit in my chair and he's in his chair and we'll chat. Sometimes he's reading in for work stories. I'm checking my emails. We're not necessarily talking to each other. We're chatting through whatever it is we have to do for the day. But I find that probably 5 out of 7 days a week, we find ourselves in those chairs, sharing that ritual, that what has now become a ritual that really, never really was to begin with. So what are some of the big takeaways from all the things that we talked about, right? We're going to call it the Midlife Love Playbook, courtesy of New Heights Podcast, right? Make the move is number one. Don't wait for a perfect moment, because we all know that perfect does not exist. We know that. We try to aim for perfection, and once we get to where we think perfection lies, we find out that it doesn't. So don't wait for the perfect time. You're never ready to have kids. You're never ready to buy the house. You're never ready to do all the things. Just do it. Number 2 is laugh together. If you can't be silly and feel like you're going to be, because you feel like you're going to be judged or ridiculed, you're not safe in your relationship. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, not take yourself too seriously. Find joy and laughter in your relationship. Celebrate each other's wins. That's number 3. No scorekeeping allowed. Number 4 is lead with openness, right? Vulnerability is your superpower. I'm a highly emotional person, so it would not be uncommon for me to tear up or cry in any conversation, even if I'm talking about good things, right? I cry because I'm overjoyed for whatever is happening. I cry because I'm sad. I cry because I'm overwhelmed. I cry because I'm happy. I cry because I'm watching something on TV that tugged at my heartstrings. Lead with openness and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And number 5 is protect your rituals. They matter more than the grand gestures, actually, right? And I know it's hard to keep them up. And if you don't have one, try to make one. Because I like to think that it could feel like your safety blanket, right? Chatting over morning coffee, sitting on the front porch in your rocking chair is a safety blanket for me. And I appreciate that. And so at the end of the day, in midlife, if you are trying to revive your relationship or start a new relationship or whatever it is that you're doing with your relationship, it's okay to rewrite the rules. Just because love looked one way when you were 25 doesn't mean it can't look completely different and better at 45 or 55 or 75 or however many fives you are. There's your food for thought. And speaking of food, ladies and gentlemen, one way to connect and have a ritual is by cooking. So yellers, before we go, what's dinner tonight? In my house, I think it's going to be grilled chicken with veggies and a baked potato. That's what's hanging out in my refrigerator right now. So I'll let you know. Check the Instagrams. So that's it for today. Taylor Swift announced her new album, but what happened really was this. She and Travis gave us a front row seat into their midlife love done right. They are bold, they are joyful, they are supportive, and they are real. And so write that note, make that playlist, buy that bracelet, and throw in some glitter. Because midlife love isn't about perfection, it's about connection. That's it for today's episode of Why Am I Yelling? I'll be back soon with more real talk, more laughs, and maybe, just maybe, more reasons for us to yell. I love you. Have a great day.